It is Tuesday, and if it's Tuesday, we all know it's a Jason Sucamel day. It's time to talk recruiting and get some updates as Jason brings back the Adidas hat that we haven't seen in a little bit of time. Hit like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Jason, it's early, it's March, but it's always time to talk recruiting. You had a small update this week about Texas A&M commit Aaron Gregory, who's been committed there for a long period of time. It looks like, Jason, that Texas may have a chance to steal A&M's cornbread. Like, latest as relates to that, Jason.
Yeah, Aaron Gregory is a Rivals 100 receiver out of Douglasville, Georgia. Has been committed to A&M, let me see here, since October of last year. So what are we talking, almost 5 months here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's A&M's highest ranked recruit, number 42 nationally. This is a guy that has 5-star potential. He was at the Navy All-American Bowl in January. I'd been hearing for a while that Texas is in pursuit. Texas thinks they have a shot to flip him. They're really working on him. And I reached out to Aaron this week, just put out some feelers. Hey, any visit plans? And he said, yeah, he's got 2 official visits. He's visiting Texas A&M June 5th, which for an official visit, which is a Thursday. A&M weirdly is doing their official visits on more Thursday through Saturday is what I'm finding out from a lot of these kids. So I don't know if that'll change, but anyways, he's got an A&M visit set up that first week of June. Texas, he's going to take an official visit to Texas. He said right now it's tentatively scheduled for that June 13th weekend, which is the big weekend for Texas. And they're having, their biggest number of guys come in. But he said, hey, it kind of depends on his 7-on-7 schedule. He's waiting to kind of map that out. So he might have to change the date. But bottom line is he is planning on taking a Texas official visit. So, that'll be an interesting battle. An out-of-state guy. It's just a weird deal. And I don't pretend to know a ton about Aaron Gregory's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I need to dig around a little bit and obviously talk to him directly. But a guy from Georgia commits to A&M so early.
Yeah.
That something just seems off, right? But he's not the only one who's done that. But then now he's looking at Texas too. So I don't know, I know, Georgia, I'm sure would take the guy. He's a national top 50 player. But why, is Georgia not heavily in the mix? Georgia has offered. So, everybody in the country's offered this guy. So it's an interesting story. But right now, he's an A&M commitment, and Texas is chipping away, trying to make their move for Aaron Gregory.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, does he have family in Texas or something like that? Or, where it's such an odd battle where if you said like if he's battling somewhere in Georgia and Alabama and things to that effect, like that seems to make the sense. The A&M thing kind of comes out of nowhere, and like you said, it's an early commitment, so then you don't know where it is. So, where is Georgia as relates to this whole thing? Do you know at this moment, Jason?
I don't know how strongly or if they're a big factor there. He doesn't do a ton of interviews, but switching to A&M, to look at their commitment list. They got 1 kid from Texas, and then onward they got Utah, North Carolina, 2 kids from Georgia, 3 from California, 1 from New Jersey. They have, out of their 9 commitments, only 1 is from the state of Texas. So
that's crazy.
Seems a little fishy, doesn't it? Call it what it is, right? But
you can't. Yeah. By the way, if Texas did that, Texas Longhorn fans would be melting down at this moment. By the way,
yeah, and it's it's always the running joke with Texas, like, oh, it's decommitment season, and A&M has had a couple decommitments, but it's A&M decommitment season. Well, when you're recruiting these out-of-state guys that early, it's tough to hang on to them unless you're KJ Lacey or Diabell, like a quarterback who's just locked his position, doesn't care anymore. So it'll be interesting to see how many of those guys wind up being in Texas's class. But, on Gregory, going back to Gregory, like I said, Georgia's offered him, so I know Georgia likes him. How strongly will he consider Georgia? I don't know the answer to that. Again, he hasn't done a ton of interviews. Like, I don't see, and maybe it's just because his profile's not updated, but there's not any Georgia unofficial visits. And honestly, he hasn't taken a ton of visits. So it's kind of an interesting recruitment. I still kind of digging in a little bit to get the backstory. I need to keep working on that and, find out what exactly is going on with Aaron Gregory. Why did he commit to A&M so early?
Yeah.
how strong of a player is Texas? What about Georgia and Alabama and Auburn and all these schools in his region? You know, how strong will they be affected?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what happens with that one. And you know, where does Texas stand, Jason? Just kind of overall with some of the other kind of elite receivers in this class. Like, who are the names that we need to know in this early process?
Yeah, if I pull up their offer list here, you know, Name Burrows out of Jacksonville, Florida, is a guy who's going to visit Texas. There in his top 5. Jordan Clay is a Rivals 100 player out of San Antonio that really likes Texas, but he hasn't set up a visit. I don't know that Texas has pushed for that visit, so we'll see if that changes. It's an interesting recruitment. I mean, sometimes the college coaches just don't see eye to eye necessarily with, you know, Rivals or any of these recruiting services rankings. So people say, why isn't Texas recruiting this guy? Well, sometimes coaches don't value some of these players the same way. And I'm not saying for sure that's the case with Jordan Clay, but he's got a Baylor visit set up. He's got a couple others, nothing with Texas yet. And he likes Texas a lot. So we'll see if that changes. Caden Dixon Wyatt out of Mater Dei out in California. He's an elite player. He's taking an official visit to Texas. He's been on campus several times. Booby Feaster, we've talked about a bunch. Texas is in the hunt there, right? They're going to get him on campus in late March, but right now they're not going to get an official visit out of Booby Feaster.
Okay, all right. So you, as of right now, but that could change.
It can change, Omar. So what happened there is he had his June official visits booked up. And Booby actually reached out to Texas and said, hey, can I come in the last weekend of May for my official? And Texas said, hey, we don't really do that. And they don't. Texas has not done May official visits. A lot of schools, I mean, SMU's doing the first week, like May 2nd, they're doing them. So, I mean, a lot of schools do them a lot earlier. Texas just crams everything in June. And Texas said, hey, we don't really do that. So Booby said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take, he's been very open. He said, I'm taking 4 official visits, only 4. And so he had his 3 in June, and he's now taking one to Miami that last week of May. So now he's going to visit Texas in March, late March, on an unofficial visit. Now, could he take that visit and could Texas say, hey, Booby, why don't you cancel this other visit in June and come see us? I mean, yeah, there's still some chance for movement there. But right now, no, he is not planning to take a Texas official visit. Caden Finley, Jermichael Finley's kid out of Aledo, he's got his Texas official visit set up for June. We talked about Aaron Gregory. You know, there's a guy, Tristan Keys, out of Mississippi, #1 receiver in the country. I've heard behind the scenes, Texas thinks they have a shot at him. Tristan's kind of like catching a ghost, so I haven't been able to really
which means he's not one of your favorites yet. Is what
no, he's not Booby Feaster. Yeah, he's not a guy. So Tristan, but you know, we'll see. I think it might be tough for Texas. There's a lot of talk about Ole Miss, Mississippi State there. Jabari Mack out of Louisiana has a Texas visit set up. You know, those are kind of, well, Chris Stewart, I should mention, of course, is already committed to Texas. So those are kind of the main names that people need to know right now at the receiver position.
Okay, so let's talk about the other exciting position, which is running back. A little bit, Jason. I think you've got like a little bit some things going as far as the running back position. We always want to talk about KJ. It's funny. There's KJ Edwards, and then of course there's the what is it? Ezekiel.
Yeah, okay. Xavier Crowell. You talking about?
Yeah, Xavier Crowell. Excuse me, Xavier Crowell. EJ is his name, correct?
I think he does go by EJ. I mean, I've just called him Xavier when I talked to him.
Yeah, Xavier Crowell. But anyway. It's funny, like you and I just a couple of weeks ago, you know, the coaching change happens. We're like, all right, I mean,
every week it's been something, and there's new stuff this week we can talk about.
So yeah, so let's talk about where the running backs are, and especially Texas with those guys.
Yeah, so Tashard Choice leaves, and Xavier Crowell says, I'm not visiting Texas anymore. Okay, that one seemed like it might be dead. Chad Scott gets hired. Javian Osborne says, I'm not visiting Texas anymore. Xavier Crowell that same night says, I'm visiting Texas again. And now that was for an official visit in June. Now it's Xavier Crowell is coming to visit Texas the last weekend of March. Ironically, the same weekend Booby Feaster is coming in. So keep an eye on that weekend. I have a feeling I'll be busy that weekend. But Xavier Crowell is taking an unofficial visit to Texas the last weekend of March, along with his official visit in June. KJ Edwards, the guy, they're back out of Carthage. We've talked about a ton. And and it's in my 3-2-1. I'm actually predicting KJ Edwards to commit to Texas now, and we can talk about that here in a second. But I talked to KJ this week, and he's had a lot of good conversations with Chad Scott, the new running backs coach. And what I thought was interesting on where he said, hey, Chad Scott called me like right when he got hired. We had a good talk. And ever since then, he has been in touch every single day with either me or my father. He's really trying to build those relationships with both of us. So I thought that was interesting. And frankly, I think it's a brilliant move by Coach Scott. And, KJ Edwards, he said, he's always said, hey, relationships are important to me. That's what's going to be huge. So, Chad Scott's doing a really good job and putting in max effort to try to build that relationship up as quickly as he can. And I think it's working. KJ told me he's going to visit SMU, Baylor, Texas, and Texas A&M. But he said right now it's kind of Texas and Texas A&M right there at the top. Mm-hmm. I'm predicting Texas, and I'm not saying that A&M can't win that race. A&M is very much a threat in that one. But I've said all along, Texas cannot afford to miss Javian Osborne and KJ Edwards. And if things are kind of fading a little bit with Javian, that makes me think, okay, they're going to pick up the intensity with KJ. And my gut tells me that's going to work out. But I don't think we'll know until after he takes his official visits. He's going to have a decision August 2nd. KJ Edwards has his decision date. So we'll see. And to be clear, I'm not writing off Texas's chances with Javian Osborne. Okay. Because Javian's, could still take a visit to Texas. Texas could still work their way back in his good graces. So some moving parts there, but the Xavier Crowell thing is really interesting. He's visited once before for the Georgia game. Mm-hmm. Now he's coming in late March. So what, 3-ish weeks, 4 weeks?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he has his official visit the first weekend of June. Same weekend KJ Edwards will take his official. So, yeah, some interesting every week it's something new with the running back recruitments. But that's kind of expected when you have a coaching change like that. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. And like you said, at some point, cooler heads prevail. And, like you said, once you get them on campus, at the end of the day, you're trying to play for, Sark and this offense. And that kind of usually ends up being usually the determining factor, right, Jason, when it's all said and done with him. So,
and he's a national top 50-ish type player, KJ is. He could go out of state if he wants to. And he said he's not opposed to that. But, I mean, look, his 4 official visits are in-state schools. Again, he's big about relationships. He said, hey, those schools have been on me since my freshman year. But you're right. Texas has a lot to sell on. I mean, yes, it's a new running backs coach, but you're still getting to play in Steve Sarkisian's offense that produces 1,000-yard rushers like every year, like it's mass production. But, it's a team that's winning. It's got, good NIL opportunities. So, I mean, Texas has a lot to sell at every position, but certainly at the running back position.
Yeah, no, 100%, Jason. And when is the next big recruiting event, Jason? When is that?
Well, it's looking like for Texas, I'm not sure. There's an Elite 11 camp, and you're kind of talking more Texas specific. The weekend of March 22nd, there's an Elite 11 camp that I'll be at. It's here in Austin. But it's looking like that last weekend, like the 29th of March, which is a Saturday, might be shaping up to be a big recruiting weekend. Booby Feaster will be there. Xavier Crowell, Zayden Krempin will be there. So I need to start kind of putting out more feelers and see if that's the date they're targeting to kind of have their big recruiting weekend. Last year they did it the first week of April. This week it's looking like might be the last week of March. But I've kind of got a running list that I've started. There are some guys that will be visiting. Zayden Krempin's April 4th. I'm sorry. But yeah, Booby Feaster and Zayden Krempin that weekend. I have Zayden Krempin will be at Texas A&M. I'm sorry, I'm confusing myself. Xavier Crowell. So we haven't, the dead period actually ended on Sunday night at midnight. Oklahoma is having a big recruiting weekend this weekend. They're going to have a bunch of guys come in. Haven't seen yet that Texas is making a concerted effort, like, hey, this is going to be our big weekend. But I would think it'll be that last weekend of March, maybe that first weekend of April. That's kind of when they did one last year.
What do you think? Also, Jason, and again, I know we're speculating at this moment, right? But if there's no spring game, no. I mean, what does that do from a recruiting perspective? Do you think they just have to de-emphasize it at that moment? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, that's the one reason I was kind of surprised that they didn't do a spring game. because that's usually a big recruiting event for Texas to get guys on campus. I mean, I'm down there every year, like not even really watching the game as much as I am just stalking recruits down there on campus. So it's a little bit different. What I think they'll probably replace it with, maybe they do it like when Texas has that, whatever it is, Fan Fest on the 25th or 26th of April, whatever it is. Or maybe they just pick a weekend when they have a scrimmage and say, hey, let's try to get all you guys in. You'll come watch the scrimmage, and then we'll have, sometimes they do like a crawfish boil or something afterwards, or some barbecue or something. So they'll kind of package it around a spring practice or a spring scrimmage. They'll have something. Again, it might be that last weekend of March, that first weekend of April, but they'll have some kind of effort where they try to get a bunch of guys in for a practice, but it just probably won't be for the spring game. Might be for that Fan Fest, but we'll see what they do. But yeah, to me, that was the one thing that was curious, is like, now, Oklahoma's doing it and everyone's starting to follow suit, but it's like, you kind of are missing an opportunity to get some of these guys on campus, but I guess the positive outweighs the negative of that opportunity. So.
Hey, Jason, just real quick, Thomas mentioned something about Trenton Henderson is going to be one of these weekends. He's I had to look it up. I wish I would love to say like, oh man, I'm just.
He did tweet that. Yeah, he did tweet that this week.
He's an edge guy out of Pensacola, Florida.
Yeah, and I think I'd have to look at his Twitter. I have it pulled up, and he's got a ton of visits. But the Rivals, just inside the Rivals 250, does have a Texas offer. I don't know that Texas is super prioritizing him, but he's going to take a bunch of visits. One will be to Texas, and hey, if he goes to Pensacola, go ahead and commit to Texas. That way I can go to Pensacola and come one of your games.
Jason, after years of covering,
and now Thomas said bad end of April, I guess. So yeah, but he's doing a ton. It came out this week.
Thomas must live in Pensacola. Like there has to be a reason why that guy is on his radar, right? There just has to be a reason. By the way,
April 20. I have him on my list. I didn't even look. April 25th through 27th will be Texas. Yeah.
Well, Jason, it's kind of funny. After years of covering the Big 12 and having to go to pretty average to below average cities, covering the SEC spring meetings in Destin, Florida, I have to say is kind of the payback because I got to say, I kind of love that annual trip to Destin, Jason. That have you been there before?
Oh yeah, we've taken it's been a long time. When our kids were young, we'd spent a week there. It's back when it was somewhat affordable, dude. Like, I'm going down a rabbit hole, but we booked this place that's called Shoreline Towers, one of the cheaper places there, but it's nice, met our needs, right? We'd cram 6 of us into I think it was a 2-bedroom condo, but like $1,500 for a week. Dude, I looked at like last year, I was like, well, I haven't been to Destin in a long time. It'd be fun. Like $6,000 to rent that same condo. I'm like, okay, you'll no longer be going to Destin. So
it is.
Yeah. Destin's
let me tell you, the SEC, they stay at a really, really nice hotel. And so now I bring my boys and I just have to chalk that up because I kind of go up and down like the elevator. I'm like, hey, I'll be back in 30 minutes. Right. So I, instead of like staying off site, right, where if I stayed off site and drove in, now I'm like, where the hell are my kids doing? Right. So I just have to chalk up that I'm just spending that money. And I just like, that's just an expensive vacation, but it's still a working vacation, but it's still kind of fun though.
No, I mean, tie it in. If you can make a working vacation and get your kids out there, hell yeah, man, why not? So like I'm this year, I'm like, okay, Dia Bell is right outside of Fort Lauderdale, so I need to find a way to go see Dia. They just offered some tight end, this Luke Sorensen out of Montana. I'm like, oh, I love the mountains. Hey, Luke, you should come to Texas so I can go check you out.
That's what we're doing, right?
Yeah. We're just like Cali kids need to commit too, so I can come see you.
We need some LA kids, and like, you know what? Texas needs to recruit a little bit more in New York, Actually,
I should have gone when they got Leonga Lafau out of Hawaii. I should have gone and checked him out in Hawaii.
Yeah, now that would have been a hell of a trip. Hey, I'm also curious a little bit, Jason, about Texas has a receiver commit, Chris Stewart, and you know what? I always go back to what Charlie Strong said years ago when he said when these guys are, verbally commit early, he said they're just making reservations. Yeah. And it has stayed in my head that when these guys commit, they're just making a reservation and we have to see if they actually show up. So Chris Stewart is committed to Texas and then he's going to take visits. Like, so give me some of a breakdown as far as what's going on with him.
I can't begrudge Chris Stewart because I am the king of making a dinner reservation, like on Open Table or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Then I cancel. Sometimes an hour later, I go, I'm going to save some money. Like 1 out of 100 times I make a reservation, I probably end up keeping it. Usually I can cancel it. So I'm kind of like Chris Stewart in that way. But Chris Stewart is a receiver out of Pearland Shadow Creek High School. He committed to Texas really early. It was June of last year, so very early. And he is taking visits, and I'll give you the rundown. He's going to SMU May 2nd, Miami May 30th, Arizona State June 6th, Texas June 13th, Tennessee June 20th, and then he's trying to set something up with Oklahoma as well. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, Anwar, he's a soft commitment at best. You could even, if you want to say, hey, he's uncommitted, I wouldn't argue with you. Okay, but I don't have a problem with Chris Stewart. Let me tell you why. First off, he's a guy that I like because he talks to me and he's just he's just appreciative, right? Like he appreciates when we talk. He's not put off by it. He's just a cool kid, right? But secondly, he's been very open about this with me, to the Texas coaches since the day he committed. I remember I talked to him and he's like, yeah, I'm still going to take other visits though, because it's a long way till signing day, especially when he committed. He said, a lot can happen. I mean, look, position coaches leave. Head coaches could leave. So he basically said the same thing this week. He said, I'm comfortable with Texas. My parents are comfortable with me at Texas, but it's a long way until signing day. Anything can happen. A lot can change. So I'm going to take these other visits. So I have some other options. The other side of that, where he's got a brother, Carter Stewart, who's in the same class, the 2026 class. And he's a defensive back. They want to go to the same school. Well, Texas isn't recruiting Carter, not as in terms of a scholarship offer. Maybe they could find ways to get him in as a preferred walk-on, and then maybe you can, if you make some NIL to cover his tuition. I don't know how you work that out, but that's a potential hurdle. But SMU and Arizona State are both recruiting his brother, have offered, and they're bringing his brother on official visits whenever Chris takes his official visits to those schools. So does that give Arizona State and SMU an edge? I don't know if I'd say an edge, but it's certainly an ace up their sleeve that they can use against Texas. Now, so we'll see. We'll see where this one goes. But, he is going to take, looks like 6 official visits, including that trip to Texas. So I would call Chris a soft commitment at this point. And I don't think Chris would argue with that. He said, no, but I mean, he does like Texas. He likes Chris Jackson, but he's just like, dude, I got to kind of do some homework in case things go sideways or in case things change.
Yeah, no, I totally see that. By the way, I just noticed that Arch, the Mannings have like an Uber ad here now as well. So that's got to be some pretty good money, huh? That's got to be.
He ain't driving Uber, Yeah. So.
I'm just saying, as far as some NIL stuff is concerned, that's got to be a pretty interesting thing. Jason, by the way, I was. Just so you know, I was slightly distracted through when you were talking because Texas did hire Neil Brown, and so I was working on that as we were talking. But I was multitasking. But if you heard a lot of I may have missed everything you said. You may have been like Javion Osborne said, "F you, Texas staff." No, I think I would have heard that as well. So. Just make sure I just had to post things and things like that, right? So make sure that was done.
I'm going to put up this comment on where, because I've seen this a lot. Says like, kind of feels like Stewart will eventually get processed. Okay, meaning Texas will recruit over him and basically show him the door. Oops, sorry, I mean to put that one up there. Thomas, people on Orange Bloods were saying that when I put up on Sunday. I said, hey, I got a Chris Stewart update. And I wrote about Chris in my 3-2-1 last night. It's on Orange Bloods today. You can see, quotes and everything. But you're not bringing him in on June 13th, the biggest weekend of the year for Texas, recruiting weekend, if Texas isn't serious and doesn't want him. So, does that mean that something won't fizzle out? It's possible. But I mean, Texas clearly wants him in this class. I mean, they're making an effort. They're bringing him in that big weekend. So, might Texas go another direction if they don't feel he's being genuine with them? I mean, anything can happen, but I wouldn't say he's getting processed. I don't like that to use that term because, I mean, they're bringing him in for the biggest weekend with all their biggest recruits on June 13th. So clearly he's a priority for him right now.
No, I totally get that from you, Jason. Jason, just a couple more things, and we'll definitely head out of here. Kind of curious, real quick, your thoughts on the combine itself, as far as the Longhorns are concerned, and does and this may be Captain Obvious here. Having 14 players go to the combine, how much does that help recruiting and help the pitch for Texas when they're talking to a lot of these guys?
Yeah, my thoughts on the combine itself. I actually watched more of the combine. I don't usually watch a ton of the combine onward.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 4 days? I don't have 4 days to sit in front of the TV, but I actually watched a little bit more this year than I normally do, probably because I had prize picks on a lot of the 40-yard dash times.
Did you win any?
Actually, well, I ended up like $150, so I'll take it.
You did more. Hey, listen, what I put in our channel when I'm telling you when they. That's probably the worst thing to say. But I won't say. But when Alex and Cody were like giving us these things, I'm like, oh, that shit's not going to hit. It's too.
Last year they were money though. Last year
they were killing it. Last year,
yeah, I think they went. I hit a 6-man play with him. I think I put $5 on it, so I didn't win much. But
oh, come on, Jason, I don't was
no. This year I did. I won. I did one that was $100 play, and I won $250. But then I lost like $100 on other ones, so I ended up net up about $150. So
okay.
So I'll take it. I'll take a little win. But I thought Matthew Golden was the star of the show. Anwar was at 4.29, right? Like I just never would have guessed that. I never looked at him on the field and thought, okay, he is a speed demon, the fastest guy in the combine overall. He wasn't known as that guy coming out of high school. So it's like, I don't know, he just developed some speed. That was impressive, especially, people said he's coming off that ankle sprain. Isaiah Bond on the flip side is like, oh, that wasn't, you're talking about breaking Worthy's record. You run a 4.4, which 4.40 is not bad. Like I was talking to my dad about this. I was like, remember in the day when someone ran like a 4.4 or 4.42? You're like, whoa. Now it's like, yeah, whatever. 4.4 is like.
Dude, the day Devin Duvernay, just like a couple of years ago, we were like, oh my God, he was at a 4. He is fast. Yeah. And now we're like.
Now you got to be sub 4.4. And maybe even sub 4.3 is like when people really start talking. It's crazy. But so I thought that was those guys impressed me.
Duvernay ran a 4.39, okay. And we thought to ourselves, that's smoking. And now we're like, oh, okay, well now I can get drafted. Like that, that's how fast things have changed.
And it's funny, and I'll circle back to the second part of your question. In my 3-2-1 column that's up on Orange Blitz today, I do a little Q&A section, and somebody asked me, like, who's our sub 4.3 guy in the 2025 class, or the guys that Texas is recruiting? I'm like, dudes, that's very rare. Like, I don't think there's going to be anyone. I mean, to go sub 4.3, you guys don't understand how rare that is. So, but there was another question in there that said, does the combine help recruiting? And are guys going to commit because of it? I said, man, guys aren't going to commit because Texas had 14 guys at the combine, but it is a selling point. And when they had, I don't even remember how many guys they had drafted last year, and it's going to be a big number again this year. Those are selling points that you can use if you're the Texas coaches. Hey guys, not only are we winning, look at our development. Look at our development. You want to get to the league? This is the place to come. So yeah, it'll be a big help. Is it going to be the reason somebody commits to Texas? No, it's not going to be the reason. There's going to be a multitude of reasons: location, academics, NIL, relationships with coaches, playing time, winning championships, all the things that go into it. But development is a big part of it. I mean, Luke Sorensen, the tight end I mentioned out of California. Mm-hmm. I got mixed up. I said he was from Montana earlier. I'm sorry. That's a different tight end from Montana. Luke Sorensen is from Anaheim, California. But Luke Sorensen, I asked him, I said, hey, NIL, this, that, and the other. And he said, no, man, it's not that's not a big deal to me. It's the biggest thing for him, he said, is development, because he's looking at the next 15 years. He wants to go to the NFL and have a long career in the NFL. So he said it's NIL for him development is the biggest thing for him. So, so listen, you can go to Luke Sorensen and say, hey, yeah, Gunnar Helm didn't have a good combine because he was injured, but look at the development we've done with JT Sanders, with Gunnar Helm. We'll see what happens this year with some of these young guys they've got, but you can continue to sell development and putting guys in the league. Hell yeah, that's a great recruiting pitch.
And one of the last things is, is a Quinn question, because I can't catch this and not go down some sort of rabbit hole of how much he doesn't think Quinn is good. Um, so so nonetheless, your thoughts on what his performance, and what does this look like if if Quinn first, second round pick, whatever that may be, Arch in a couple of years from now, like it seems like Texas fans used to have to look at Lincoln Riley and think to themselves, "Oh, damn! Look at all those good quarterbacks that they have over there, and look at what we're working with." It's almost a role reversal in some way, and it almost seems like Quinn will be the guy that kind of gets this thing jump started. Not only from a QB perspective, from draft wise, but also from a recruiting thing as well. Which I guess he technically is the guy that got it started recruiting wise as well.
Yeah. They did that too. You're right. Yeah, and then I mean, listen, Arch is what it is. He's going to be a high draft pick. We all pretty much assume that. And I don't know who the guy will be after Arch, but I guarantee it'll be somebody good. They've got 2-3 good guys in the stable coming in, so they'll have another good quarterback, and like it just kind of steamrolls after that. So Texas is going to, it's going to take some time, but Texas is going to develop that kind of reputation that Lincoln Riley had going at Oklahoma. I mean, Lincoln Riley had a couple Heisman winners, so we'll number one draft picks. We'll see if Texas gets to that level. But I think Sark is kind of building this reputation, right? Deservedly so. That Texas is, I won't say quarterback you. They're not that yet, but they're getting into that discussion. So as far as Quinn, it's funny, Almar. When he was working out, I think it was on Saturday, I was doing kind of a little family thing, celebrate my wife's birthday. So I had it on in the background, and I didn't get to watch him super closely. But a couple times I peeked. I think I was cooking. I peeked, and he missed a couple throws, and I was like, "Oh, damn, that didn't look good." But then I went back after the combine, and I saw something on Twitter that had like all of his throws. I'm like, "Oh shit!" I kind of undersold how good Quinn was in this thing because I just happened to catch the couple passes that weren't great. We'll see. Did it elevate his stock? I saw and I'm not a draft expert by any means. I saw a mock draft today, and he wasn't in the top 2 rounds. It had Jackson Dart as the third quarterback. Ironically, this draft had the Steelers taking Matthew Golden, and then it had the Steelers taking Alfred Collins in the second round. So I'd love that. It also had Kelvin Banks going like 25th to the Texans. So I'm like, what?
Do you know how much I hate mock drafts? I don't know if I've gone down this rabbit hole, but however Alex feels about journalists is how I feel about mock drafts. Like, I think they're all trash. Like, I think you get past the first 3 or so obvious picks, and then everything else, there's a trade that comes in, this and that. These guys don't know. They're absolutely playing.
Especially when you're going into round 2 and 3 and 4. Like, really? I mean, yeah.
I've seen people do 7-round mock drafts.
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that. Yeah.
And I'm like, you just need a girlfriend at this point. Like, you have way too much time on your hands. Like, you just need a girlfriend, go on a date, something like that. Second round is ridiculous. So first, so I think all mock drafts are trash. To just be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
So I'm just
well, that I was excited when I saw this. First thing I do when I pull up a mock draft, I go straight to see who the Steelers were projected, and I was excited. I saw Matthew Golden. Okay, he fits a need, and I was excited when I saw Alfred Collins. I loved covering Alfred all the way back to his recruit. I loved his mom. Still love his mom, and great people, great family. So I was excited. But then I saw Kelvin Banks at 25. I'm like, well, how seriously should I be taking this mock draft? It doesn't seem that legit, but I don't know. We'll see. Quinn still has his pro day. I know the Steelers are a team that Quinn's talked to. But yeah, I thought he looked good at the combine. Going back, like I said, it was kind of 2 different views for me, because on Saturday I was like, oh man, he didn't look so good. But then when I went back and looked at his full performance, he made some really nice throws. I think he did kind of what probably I expected him to do. I mean, Quinn in those kinds of settings is always going to impress you with his arm and his accuracy on some of the intermediate stuff and the deep outs and things. So, I think he certainly didn't hurt himself. I think he did kind of what I expected him to do and went out there and looked pretty good.
All right, Jason, get out of here, because I know we gotta do some show in a few minutes. So
yep, I'll see you soon.
All right, take care, Jason. Jason Suckermel from orangebloods.com. Appreciate it. You joined us late. We got some things. There's some breaking news that we had as far as Neil Brown being hired as an assistant on the staff. The good part is, like, a lot of these guys can coach on the field. So I'm working on that as we speak, to be quite honest with you. So I did put that out there on Twitter. It is former West Virginia head coach. They put that out there on Orange was as he was talking, and so that's why I'm always looking down at this phone, because I just never know when it's going to happen. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that's been happening a little bit lately. So let me go ahead, work on this, see what some other things I need to flush out. But hey, I'll be back tomorrow. I may get my guy Dash from Georgia. My friend Georgia, right? I may get him to come on with me tomorrow. But I'll work on that. I don't think I had any super chats in here. I don't think I missed anybody. So it looks like all hearts and minds are clear. Y'all take care. Remember, I always say, live each day like it was your last. One day it will be. Go out there.